Do you want to add data visualization into your web app? If so, you don't want to miss this video. I'm going into detail about how Softr just released a new feature that allows us to now add charts directly into our Softr front-end web app. All of this driven by the back-end data that we store in Airtable. If that's of interest, stick around and let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth. I own Gap Consulting, a company that helps you to organize and automate your business using no-code tools like Airtable and Softr, which we are talking about in this video. If that's of interest, be sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'd like to, before we get into it, invite you to join me for my upcoming live training. Once a week, I jump on in a live webinar, and I teach the fundamental basics of building automation from scratch using no-code tools. I save personally 20 hours per week for myself and for many of my clients. So if that's of interest and you'd like to learn at least the building blocks of how to do that, check the link below. You can sign up at garethpronovost.com/webinar-registration. And even if you can't attend the live event, I'll send you a replay so you can always check it out then. But without further ado, let's jump into this actual video. We're talking about the new feature that Softr has released, charts, inside of the web app. Huge thing that they've just pushed out, because for so long we haven't had a way to visualize our data in some sort of aggregate way. It's so difficult for us to look at every single record individually and not see a chart or some sort of a graph that kind of allows us to understand the big picture, and that's exactly what Softr has made possible with this new feature. So let's hop on into my screen and get going. Now first I want to start off with the dashboard that Softr put together for us. It highlights the different types of charts that you can bring into your database. So you see here that they have a sample company that they've built. Startup metrics is what they're looking at. We have some summary blocks here that's looking at the total number of paid subscribers or monthly recurring revenue or annual run rate, etc. And then we get to actually look at what that looks like in a chart, right? And so this particular one looks like an area graph that is showing us, how MRR is growing over time, monthly recurring revenue. So that's really great. We can also drill in on this when we're in the actual app itself. We have a few different options up here. We can save as an image. We can zoom in. So if we zoom in, let's just take this little chunk, we can actually drill into that part. We can zoom back out. We can switch this to a line chart. Of course, this already is, or we could switch it to a bar graph as well if we wanted to look at the data in a slightly different way. But in any case, a really cool way to get started. All of these features are available with every one of the different charts that fall into this particular category. Scrolling down, we see the marketing site traffic. Now this one is by default showing up as a bar graph. We can turn that into the line chart if we want. We also have the zoom capabilities and saving it as an image. A different type of graph that Softr's also included in their charts is the pie chart. So here we can see, we're looking at two different things in a total of paid subscribers or free subscribers. So that's pretty nice as well. So as you can see, Softr's put a lot of work into this, and I'm sure a lot more features are going to be coming, new charts being added and new capabilities inside those charts. But let's jump on into an actual example and look at how we can set up a few of these charts directly inside of our app. So I've started off here with an Airtable example template. This is one of the sales CRM templates that you can just download from the Airtable universe. Really easy to access. And I'm looking in particular here at my opportunities table. I built a specific view called Proposal Opportunities by Owner, and I'm looking at a specific status. So we're imagining that we have this opportunities table that has a few different opportunities throughout different process or different status within our organization. So we have qualification, proposal, evaluation, negotiation. I mean, pretty standard stuff for a CRM or a deal flow template, right? And so in this particular case, I'm looking only at those opportunities that are in the proposal status. So I've only filtered in those. And so then beyond that, I've also grouped by the owner of the opportunity. So you can set up a grouping here, and I'm grouping by owner. And so we can see pretty easily that Jess has these 3 opportunities, Sandy has these 2, and then we've got 2 others here to 2 other owners. So if I want to visualize this data in a chart, rather than having to read line by line, let's pop into Softr and see how we can get that all set up. So inside of a new Softr web app, I'm going to just add a new block. Inside the block, we'll go ahead and hit the plus button here, and when we choose to add a block, we get the opportunity to look at either static data, which is the same every time the app is run, or we're going to look at dynamic data, and this is of course data that changes based on the underlying data that we're passing in from Airtable or whatever data source we use. So for us, obviously a chart is dynamic data, so click over to dynamic and you see your chart options down here. Now we have a bunch of different options in setting up our first chart. We can choose bar, line, area, or scatter. Now I group these four together because they're very similar. They're using the same settings, and you can flip between bar to line graph as I showed earlier in the example. Now beyond that, we have a few options for pie charts as well. So we have a pie chart, a donut chart, or a rows chart. These are all basically the same thing as well. We can set them up using the same settings and then flip through the different types if we want to visualize the data slightly differently. So let's go back into our bar chart that we've already set up and look at the different settings as we put that into practice. So by clicking on here, we're going to open up the options for that particular block. Obviously, we need to first connect it to our base and then the table. So in our case, our base was called Softr Charts example, and the data lives in the opportunities table. We have to make sure to specify the table where this data lives. Now beyond that, we can look at a default view. You can see that the Airtable view as a filter and sorting option will help you to get the exact results that you're looking for in your particular chart that you're building. And then we can also sort it by certain filter here. So how do we want to order this data? In my case, I say, hey, look, I want to look at this in order of the owner of this particular data. So then we can change the title. So if I want to make a change here, you see that that's changing the title that's written up here, and then the subtitle shows up right below it. So this is a great way for us to make sure that everything is staying organized as we build out our different charts. Now we get two different modes here. You saw dark mode in the previous example, and here is the light mode, but if I can switch it out, obviously that will change or switch out the way that the chart presents. I'm going to use light mode for this example. And you see here, as I was mentioning earlier, that we can flip through the four different types of graphs. So we have bar, line, scatter, or area, and these are all interchangeable in this particular chart setting. So we can go between these different ones fairly simply. We also get the option to choose if it's going to be vertically displayed or horizontal, so a nice new feature here. If we want to show that zoom capability that I showcased earlier, we can. By default, this is set to be on, or we can turn it off, and you'll notice that by doing so, the little zoom icons are no longer available to our users. We can go into the legend, whether we want to show that or not, and by taking it out, this little section right here that shows what this data is removed. So if we do choose to keep the legend in, we also have the options here to keep it positioned or change the direction. Also, do we want to show tooltips? And do we want to enable the download feature? So a lot of customization. Long story short, you can change a lot about how your graphs and charts show up. Now for the fun stuff, we have to get into how we are going to actually display this data, right? And so in our case, we're looking at the X and Y axis. And so we're going to say, what lives on that X axis? What lives on that Y axis? I've set this up to be owners on the horizontal or X axis, and the estimated value of the various deals is showing up on the vertical or Y axis. Looks pretty nice, but the one complaint that I do have, and I'm sure Softr will be addressing it soon, is there's no way for me to aggregate this data in the chart yet. And so, for example, I've got 3 different opportunities here that belong to Jess, one of the people in my organization. Well, what I would love to see would be a summation of that deal flow for him, so I could see how much is in Jess's pipeline in particular. But I don't get an aggregation option here, and there's no way for me to kind of lump his 3 deals together. Instead, what's happening is Softr's chart is actually taking every single record and creating a specific interaction or a specific piece on my graph just for that data. So let's flip back into our CRM, and we see here that Jess has 3 different opportunities. One at 23K, another at 23K, and one just under 16K. While flipping back into Softr, that's exactly what we see here, 23, 23, and 16. But again, what I'd rather see here is a summation of his different deals so that I could lump them all together and see his total amount for that particular section of time or for that particular status. Now with a little bit of Airtable trickery, we can actually go in and make Softr show us this, but it does come down to the architecture of how we've set up our database. So let's really quickly talk about how we can bring that aggregate data into our table rather than just looking at every single one of the deals as its own unique graph or line on our graph. So let's hop back into our database here, and if I scroll all the way to the right, you'll see that the owner is currently a single select field. Well, let's instead make this a linked record. So I will actually create a link to another table, and I'll create a table specifically called owner. So I'm going to create a new table here, and yes, it will be called owner, and we'll set that up. Now with just a click of the mouse, you see that now I have a table called owner, and these opportunities are connected to that table. Now what I can do in my owner table is actually bring in that data, specifically the data that I want to sum for this example. So let's go ahead and build a roll-up field for total sales in proposal stage. This is a roll-up field. I'm looking at the link that I have to my opportunities. I'm looking for the value. What is the name of that? Estimated value is the field. And in this case, I want to run a sum, but I want to make sure to specify only specific values are counted. In my example, let me really quickly just create this field. I'm going to flip back to opportunities and look again. I have my filtered by status of proposal. So back in my roll-up field here that I just built, I want to make sure I apply that same filter. So in this case, I'm going to drop in here and say that status must be proposal in order to be counted in my roll-up field. Now, once I save this, you'll see that now I'm getting the summed amount for each owner. So again, it comes down to data structure. This is something I can now plug into a graph, and it's going to show up the way that I would have expected it to in the first place. Again, this is all because we don't yet have the ability to aggregate the data at the chart level, so we have to be a little crafty in the way we structure the data in our database. Popping back into Softr now, let's add a new chart. And so I'm going to click that plus, add a block. In this case, I'm going to use the dynamic chart, and we'll make it a bar chart. So here we go, new one here, and I'm going to go ahead and link it up to the base. So this is Softr Charts. And this now I'm looking at my new table that I just built, the owner table, because that's where this data lives as summed up as I need it to. I'm going to call this my aggregate data, and I'll get rid of the subtitle. Light mode is fine, bar mode is fine. Let's scroll on down to the bottom here and set up our X and Y axis. Our X axis is going to be the name of the person, and our Y axis is going to be the total sales in the proposal stage. And now we get a nice clean picture for each of our different sales folks, and we get to see how much they're working on in their specific pipeline in aggregate, all of their different opportunities in the proposal stage summed. Now let's change gears and take a look at our pie chart. Now I started this with a rows chart, but they're very similar. Rows, donut, or pie are all interchangeable. And so we have the Airtable base. Again, what table we're looking at. This one's still looking at opportunities. And of course, if you want to set it up to a default view and a sort, etc. Now here we have the same options for mode, light or dark. We also have the ability to look at classic rows or donut type. And we can scroll on down and look at legend and some other options. Now, for us, what is the value that we're looking at? And then how are we going to label each one of these little chunks? So just as it did in my first example, where it had one record for every single opportunity that was showing up in our database, so too is this graph doing that. So I better make some changes here and actually look at that new table I built, the owner table. I'm going to select the view. We only have one view. And let's go ahead and bring in some values here. So what is the value I want to bring in? Well, for me, it's going to be that total sales in the proposal stage. And how do I want to label it? Well, I want to label it by name. And now I'm getting a clear visualization of what percent of the deals that I have in my pipeline belong to the different owners or sales reps for the company. So I'm sure you can see how these charts are really going to take your Softr apps to the next level. I hope you got a ton of value out of this. Definitely leave any comments you have below. As I said, subscribe to the channel if you're excited about no code and want to get more tips like this, and I will see you in the next video.
As always, I hope you found that to be extremely helpful. If you did and you'd like to learn more, swing by our website and see how we can help. We offer a free Airtable crash course that will help you level up in Airtable quickly, and we also have some paid services, including hourly consultations with our experts. We have some online courses and a group coaching program. And for advanced needs, we can build a bespoke solution for you from scratch. So swing on by, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.